In 1933, Berlin is a city struggling to stand tall. The global Great Depression has hollowed out the nation, leaving 30% of the German working-age population unemployed. On every street corner, the scene is the same. Desperate men standing in soup kitchen lines that stretch for blocks. Now, fast forward just 6 years to Berlin, 1939. It is Hitler's 50th birthday. The atmosphere is unrecognizable. Unemployment is effectively 0%. The soup kitchens have vanished. In their place is a terrifying display of industrial might. Thousands of state-of-the-art tanks, heavy and columns of mechanized infantry, while hundreds of modern fighters and bombers roar overhead. This army, which would soon overwhelm the powers of Europe, was built from virtually nothing in just 6 years. This happened despite Germany having almost no access to crucial raw materials like rubber oil or high-grade iron. This seemingly impossible transformationist economic miracle that fueled such devastation was not accidental. It was meticulously engineered by one man, Hjalmar Schacht, known as the Dark Wizard of International Finance. Schacht used a series of highly unorthodox and often deceptive tricks to allow Nazi Germany to seemingly defy economic gravity. So, how did he do it? And why, despite his success, did he end up in a concentration camp? This is the economic miracle that killed millions. To understand the miracle, we have to understand the man and the mess he inherited. Hjalmar Schacht was born in 1877. He was a man of immense intellect, earning a PhD in economics from the University of Kiel. He rose quickly to become a titan of German finance. During the First World War, Schacht saw firsthand the fatal weakness of the German Empire, a total lack of natural resources. The Allied naval blockade had literally starved the German war effort. When the war ended, the new Weimar Republic was born. Schacht wasn't a radical. He was actually a founding member of the center-left German Democratic Party, but he was called upon to save the nation from its first great catastrophe, the hyperinflation of 1923. Most people think hyperinflation happened because the government was stupid. It wasn't. The Weimar government was trapped, facing an international balance of payments crisis. They owed massive reparations in gold and foreign currency under the Treaty of Versailles. To pay these while their industrial heartland, the Ruhr-Gebiet, was occupied by foreign troops. They turned to the printing press. Schacht was the man who stopped the bleeding by introducing a new currency and negotiating the Dawes Plan. For a moment, Germany thrived. But then came 1929. When the US stock market crashed, American loans vanished. German exports plummeted. By 1932, the government deliberately crashed the economy further through extreme austerity, raising taxes and cutting spending just to reduce imports and keep the currency stable. This engineered depression is what led to the very soup kitchens and the radicalization of the German voter. Desperate and disillusioned, Schacht radicalized. In 1931, he stood alongside Hitler at a rally. He saw in the Nazis a force that could tear up the Treaty of Versailles. When Hitler became chancellor in 1933, he immediately brought in Schacht to fix the economy. Schacht faced 3 impossible goals. He had to get 6 million Germans working again, build a massive army in total secrecy, and prevent another hyperinflation. The solution was the new plan. On the surface, it looked like Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal. The government borrowed money to fund public works like the auto, but in reality, civilian spending was a smokescreen. The real money was going into rearmament, which was strictly forbidden by international law. To hide this, Schacht used his most famous trick, the Mefo Bill. He set up a shell company called Metal-Verschungsgesellschaft. This company placed massive military orders with industries like Krupp and Porsche, paying them not with cash, but with promissory notes, because these stayed off the official government books. The Nazis could borrow billions of marks for tanks and planes without the world, even the German public knowing the true scale of the debt. But as the government spent more, the risk of inflation grew. If everyone has a job and money, they start buying things, and prices go up. To stop this, Schacht and the Nazis implemented total control. First, they smashed the labor unions. Wages were frozen. If you can't ask for a raise, and the government dictates the price of bread, inflation stays hidden. They implemented price controls across every sector, from textiles to seafood. Inflation was effectively outlawed, but it was replaced by shortages. To manage these shortages, Schacht used quotas. His bureaucracy decided which sectors got steel and coal and which did not. If a factory wanted to build a civilian car, but the army wanted a tank, the tank won every time. for the balance of payments crisis. He was even more ruthless. He announced a selective debt default, essentially refusing to pay back loans to the US while keeping up payments to countries that provided vital resources. He then introduced capital controls, meaning no German could buy products from abroad without filling out paperwork for the Reichsbank. The ultimate consequence of this logic involved the Jewish population. Schacht saw a financial problem. If Jewish citizens fled the country and took their wealth with them, the Reichsbank would lose its remaining foreign currency. He helped implement personal capital controls that stripped those fleeing of their assets. It was a cold, bureaucratic contribution to the nightmare that followed. By 1936, the miracle was hitting a wall. The economy was at full capacity. There were no more unemployed workers. To keep building the military, Schacht had to start cannibalizing the civilian economy. This is where Schacht and Hitler finally diverged. Schacht was a nationalist, but he was also a rational economist. He wanted to slow down, stabilize the debt, and reintegrate into the global economy. Hitler, however, believed war was inevitable and immediate. He wasn't looking for a steady economy. He was all about a war economy. Hitler bypassed Schacht by appointing Hermann Göring to lead a 4-year plan for total war and known as Autarky. Schacht's influence faded, and he resigned as economy minister in 1937. He remained as Reichsbank president just long enough to oversee the plunder of Austrian gold reserves during the 1938 on. By early 1939, even that role was over. He had built the engine of destruction, but he no longer had his hand on the throttle. In 1944, the Gestapo arrested Schacht for an alleged role in the July 20th plot to assassinate Hitler. The man who had financed the Nazi rise spent the final months of the war in the Flossenburg and Dachau concentration camps. After the war, Schacht stood trial at Nuremberg. While Göring and Speer were convicted, Schacht was acquitted of crimes against peace, with the judges ruling that rearmament itself was not a war crime. He lived until 1970, spending his final years as a financial consultant. The Nazi economic miracle was a facade. It was built on hidden debt, stolen assets, and the total suppression of freedom. It enabled the killing of millions, but it could not be sustained. Ultimately, the Nazi war economy was massively outproduced by the industrial might of the Allies. The story of Hjalmar Schacht is a haunting reminder. You can manipulate an economy to defy gravity for a few years, but eventually, the bill, paid in blood and ruin, always comes due. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Do you think Schacht was a brilliant economist trapped by a monster, or was he a willing architect of the regime's destruction? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this look at historical finance, hit that like button and share it with a history buff. And don't forget to subscribe for more fun dives into the economics that shaped our world. Thanks for watching.